Got a M35 2006. History, just really quick. There was spark plugs replaced, and there's a misfire that isn't currently resolved yet. So it does have an oil leak. I gotta do valve covers on this, and while I'm doing the valve covers, I'm just gonna go ahead and resolve the misfire while I'm in there, because it'll be pointless for me to fix the issue, the oil leak that is in the tube seals, and not resolve the misfire. So what I'm going to do, I was looking at some data. There's no cylinder misfire on this car, so it's not specifying which cylinder is misfiring. And bidirectionally, I don't have the means of going through the scan tool and pulling up like an engine balance, uh, looking at a graph like I would a Ford, you know. So it doesn't show the drop off signal when misfiring. I don't have that information. So basically, I don't have misfire data with this car. So what I'm doing, I've got to use my past experience and diagnostic abilities to figure out what the hell's going on with this car, obviously, and try to use as minimal diagnostic tools as possible, because it can get pretty in depth. But I'll tell you what, the car does misfire under load. So when I rev it up, it misses. When it's above, say, about 2,000 RPM, you rev it up, then fall off, and then rev it up, do snap throttles, it doesn't misfire. So it's classic that there's a arc in the tube of the coil, the insulator. So I don't know if you looked at some of the past videos I have, but that's classic. When it misfires under load, under low RPM, and it clears up during high RPM, there's a impedance. Something is preventing that spark from making a good burn, adequate burn. So that's what we're dealing with right now. So what I'm doing is, it would misfire at idle. So I'm just looking at the bank 1, bank 2 air fuel ratio sensors. Air fuel ratio sensors are gonna, the voltage is gonna be flipped around. So low voltage means rich, high voltage means lean conditions. Now, when I did some snap throttles, I was looking and monitoring the air fuel ratio sensors and seeing which bank tend to favor the rich side more so than the lean side. At first, I was like, well, it seemed like it was the blue, which was the bank 1. But when the car would misfire after running for a while, it would start missing. It would start favoring the blue, the green side here, which is the bank 2. And I'm gonna turn the AC on and get it under a more of a load. How do I work this thing here? Okay. Let me see what happens. RPM raised. It's not helping me out any. I'm gonna cut the air off. I'm gonna put it in gear. See if I can get it to start misfiring, but it was beating. There you go, right there, it's doing it. So look at that. Bank 2 is dropping off. It's not much, but it's questionable, and you just got to get it at the right moment. So yep, look at it, dropped well below 1. So bank 2 is where my misfire is, because if you notice how air fuel ratio sensors are, when you do a snap throttle, it's supposed to go lean, and then it'll balance, and then go fall down and go rich, and then balance back out. Bank 2 is where the issue is with this misfire. So based on my past experience, based on the misfire conditions, I'm going to, when I pull these valve covers off, or get the intake off to get to the valve covers, pull off bank 2, since I do have to pull all the coils out, pull all of bank 2 out, and inspect the coils. Now, I could pull the oscilloscope out, connect to all of the 3 coils on that bank 2, and see which one's falling off. But this seems like a classic issue with the insulator, inside on the coil that connects to the spark plug. So this is what we're starting off with. Real quick, I'm just going to move the idiot cover so we can get all of the normal looking stuff exposed to start working on this car. So let's get that. So bank 2 is the problem. Bank 2. So what I'm gonna do to find bank 2, here's number 1 plug, and number 2 coil is gonna be here. So the closest one to the cylinder is gonna be 1. So here's 1, here's 2. So all the coils over here are the one in question to what's causing that misfire. What I could do if I don't find any discrepancies, pull all the coils off that bank onto the other bank. And worst case scenario, I ain't got to pull the intake back off. I ain't got to disturb anything on the air duct side if I need to test anything. But while I'm over there, I'm gonna pull everything back out because I know the plugs were replaced before by somebody else, and just inspect the coils, make sure the porcelain wasn't cracked. That's the portion. Let me see. All right, make sure the porcelain. So the porcelain is going to be here. This has to be insulated. So once the spark gets emitted from the secondary side through here down through the top of the spark plug into the cylinder, if anything from here on down isn't insulated, such as this insulator here for the coil, that spark or arc, and that fire that's supposed to be concentrated from the electrode to the ground is not going to have an efficient burn, hence is why you're going to get the misfire. So like I say, I'm going to inspect the spark plug, make sure there's no issues or damage, anything, the porcelain is not compromised, and if that's the case, replace it because it'll be obvious, and then make sure that there's nothing wrong with the boot here on the coil. Now, one thing to note on that bank 2 side, that's where you put oil in. The fuel port's right there. If there's any oil that gets down there and it saturates the boot, it will compromise the boot. Oil and rubber, some materials of rubber don't mix, and it will just tear it up. And that's why it could damage the boot, and you will get a misfire because of arc. If you look at the video with the Renegade, I'll try to put it in there. I've been having some issues putting up other links, but that video shows what could happen on a waveform when you do have some type of compromise with the boot and you have like a faint misfire. That's why I noticed that. All right, let's. I'm gonna go ahead and get all this stuff pulled out. I'm not gonna show how to do that because there's 1,000 of these videos. So I'm gonna simply just remove the air duct, remove the bolts to pull the intake off, and I just want to show the misfire. That hopefully what I'm thinking is true and factual based off of the symptoms I've been experiencing. But I'm pretty confident, very confident. So let me get to it. One more thing I want to show, the codes that were on here previously. So initially we had P0300 random multiple misfire, so it didn't specify which cylinder is misfiring. And then there was another store code with the air temperature sensor, so the circuit's high. So these, being that there's human error, things happen. We do cars, fuck up. It's human. It's natural. It's natural. So I'm just gonna look over, being that all the stuff was taken off, and just make sure that when things were taken off, they were correctly put back. Because the possibility the intake temperature sensor may not be hooked up properly, the connection may be bad. It happens. Not a big deal. So we're going to tackle the P0300, which we determined it was bank 2 based off the data. The P0113, the intake air temperature sensor circuit high, which is a typical indication that likely is disconnected. But it's not going to contribute to the misfire only because it doesn't have a major influence on enrichments during just normal running conditions. You know, the mass airflow map sensor, coolant temperature sensor usually is going to greatly determine how there's timing, spark, and fuel delivery. So we're not affected by both banks. It's just one bank. So I think we're good. I'll just make sure everything is buttoned up properly. So here's the bank 2 side, and you can see where the oil residue is collecting down inside the valve cover there, where it can get inside the spark plug tubes. So one of these are going to be the potential culprit to why we have a misfire here, and that's what I was saying. Like when oil gets on tube coil boots, it'll kill the ability to insulate because of how oil weakens the rubber. So, you know, we can look at the coils here, make sure everything's connected, and which they should be, because you know it wasn't a hard misfire. Where's that? Here we go. Couldn't even find out where I was going. So make sure the coil's not broken. So I'm gonna keep on pulling all this stuff off, and so we can get the valve covers moved, and then when we get adequate space, pull those out comfortably, and we're good. All right, I know I'm the biggest walking contradiction here, but just really quick, you do have to remove the upper intake to access the lower portion to get the lower portion out. So I use a 10 millimeter, got all the bolts around the upper intake plenum, pull that off, and then I'm gonna get the lower portion out. I think I got everything except for the hose in the back. This coolant, I think it's either coolant or vacuum. It's gonna be a coolant hose in the bottom now here. I got the upper plenum off, and here we have the lower exposed. I'll take those 10 millimeter bolts here. Take those out, and I should be able to extract the lower plenum. Hello? 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 Damn, that's hot. Get a little closer. I just gotta come off anyway. And I can get enough room to almost comfortably get the valve cover off now. I think this will be enough room, but we're gonna go ahead and pull the coils out. So this is gonna be cylinder 6, 4, and 2. So let's inspect these coils. This is 4 coming out. So again, I'm just checking the boot, the plastic, everything, all this insulation here that's keeping the coil boot away from grounding out. So this one seems to be okay. Let's go to 6. Also seems to be okay. And what I'm looking for is like white marks, which will be a sign of arcing. It'll be like a little pin-sized hole in most cases. And now we're gonna pull 2 out. And this one does, the one that had most of the oil in there. The most part, it looks okay. So now what I'm gonna do, pull the spark plugs out and inspect those. Here we go. So 2, 4, 6. So with the spark plugs, I'll be looking for any type of discrepancies with the porcelain, this white portion you see here, and see if there's any abnormalities with the burn conditions on the head of the spark plug by the electrode. And one seems fairly normal. Keep those together. Sorry, that will be 2. This will be 4. 4. Yep, found the problem. There you go. Wait. I think I did. Then again, I guess I didn't. Hold on. Jumped the gun there. Thought I saw a mark down in the porcelain that looks questionable. Get a rag and wipe it clean. Looked like it fired pretty normal. All right, let's get number 6. This one looked the best out of the bunch. Fire looks pretty normal. It's got a white soot in there. I could be wrong as far as the banks go. So, I mean, it'll be wise to pull out, all the spark plugs and inspect all the coils. I mean, there's some things we can overlook. We can also separate the boot from the actual coil and inspect the spring here. Make sure that's not rusted. Make sure the primary outlet here is not rusted or anything. I found it. There you go, right there. You see that white? There you go. So I told you I was looking for white. Found it right there. I don't know how well it shows up on the camera. Right there. Classic arcing right there. So it needs a coil. Or I can just put a boot on it. Let me see what I got. Take a better look at it. It's like classic. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've had to deal with this. These faint misfires on vehicles, and they're just very hard to come across. And the visual inspection took care of it. I mean, this is obvious. We looked at the fuel trims, and the fuel trims pointed to bank 2 because the cylinder that was misfiring indicated it was a fuel. I'm sorry, it was a fire-related issue because the short-term fuel trims or the initial fuel, being that these are air-fuel ratio sensors, initial. Oh shit! You know what? I thought it was something else I was noting, but sorry, I got sidetracked. So the initial readings of the air-fuel ratio sensor went rich. That's the benefit of an air-fuel ratio sensor, how immediate they respond. And being that it showed an instance to where it was a richer conditions for a second or two on the time that it was picking up a signal that indicated it was a fire issue. So any type of discrepancy in the firing will have unburned fuel. Unburned fuel is going to create richer mixtures. With the air-fuel ratio sensor, the numbers will drop, indicating a rich mixture, which displayed in about 40 millivolts, dropping down in some instances to 95 millivolts versus the 1.45 volts that at normal idling conditions. So that pointed to bank 2. We're on bank 2, and being able to just kind of overlook the boot here, once I pulled it back out and start to re-inspect them, I saw that little white pit there, and this is just classic. So I'm not going to go over the entire repair. I'm pulling these valve covers because there's oil down in there. I want to resolve the oil issues that it has, and this is what we talked about. And if one of the cylinders had a significant amount of oil in it, let's go ahead and take care of it, get it cleaned up, do it right while we're in here, get everything buttoned back up. And while I have the intake off, I'm gonna go ahead and clean everything, clean the intakes with brake cleaner, get everything cleared all up, get everything buttoned back, and we'll be good to go. So just to even confirm that this is just the problem, I'm replacing just this. I am not putting a whole new coil in it. I am so 100% confident that this little arc here was causing all her trouble. We're replacing this. And it's a $10 part. Part will be in tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and get these valve covers knocked out today and get everything buttoned back up tomorrow. But it'll be tomorrow when you see it. Well, it'll be today or like a clip when you see it, but tomorrow for me. And we'll be test driving and showing you how precise my diagnosing capabilities can be. One more thing, I'm gonna mark my coils here. So I got little dots here indicating the corresponding cylinder. So we got 2, 4, and we got 6 here. And I'm gonna put a mark on the bad coil boot so we know which one to change. So I'm gonna mix all this stuff up here. Even though we didn't have a cylinder misfire, like it didn't specify the cylinder, I'm still going to put everything back in its corresponding location and show you what's going on. You're just gonna have to take my word for it as far as the misfire go, because I don't know if the camera probably picked up it missing, but the best thing I got is the data floating around as far as hitting those rich conditions. So you have to take my word for it here. All right, so the day is the next day. Got the valve covers replaced on both sides, and I don't know if I said, but if your intentions are to change the valve cover tube seals, you can't. They're integrated in the valve cover, so you have to change the whole valve cover. But here's the new part. So import direct part here, and here's the new part. There's no discrepancies with the coil boot here. So here's the aftermarket, factory. So I'm going to simply just separate these. Let's get this installed. Got everything put back together, a little bit cleaner than what we were before. Just gotta get this intake tube tightened up. So just to go back over everything, the upper intake, purge valve, there's the brake booster, got a breather there. So I think we're good. I'm gonna go ahead and start up now before I get the rest of the cosmetics on there. Cool, sound normal. First start up. I'm gonna let it sit and run and warm up to get normal operating temperature, and look at the fuel trim and compare the information. All right, I'm just getting everything set back up. The car's been running for about 10 minutes now. It's in closed loop. I'm just getting my sensors set up. This bank, this heater 02. I need those graphs merged. So I'll merge those two. That's that. All right, so here are both of our air-fuel ratio sensors on bank 1 and bank 2. You can see there 2 it was the problem child, but it's just it's slightly a little bit leaner in conditions, but nothing crazy. So they're both very close to each other. But I'm gonna do some snap throttles, and it should go lean and then back rich again, just been balanced out. So here we go with that. And they're balancing back out. There's no more issues in regards to misfire under load conditions. So when I'm revving it up from a low RPM, it's not hesitating anymore. So this issue is like totally fixed. Totally fixed. And I could let it sit in idle for a while, but it was very obvious under load conditions that there will be a misfire on bank 2. So just to recap, first got the car, there were some discrepancies with it as far as misfires go. She had a mechanic put plugs in there, and even though put plugs and a coil pack in there, and unfortunately, even after the replacement, it helped, but it didn't completely resolve some of the misfires it had, or a misfire. Got my hands on it, and I was able to look at the fuel trims and make a determination to which cylinder is it has a discrepancy. So we narrowed down from the banks by just monitoring the air-fuel ratio sensors. Now, the benefit with the air-fuel ratio sensors again is the fact that how rapidly they respond is going to be the opposite of an oxygen sensor. So the lower the number, the richer it is. The higher the number, the leaner the conditions. So once the misfire would occur, being that there's no spark there, there's unburned fuel. There's unburned fuel, then there's going to be a rich condition. It's not going to be something significant, but in comparison to a bank that is normal and functioning on all cylinders, then we have something to compare it to. That is the standard. Bank 1 was the standard of how the ideal condition is supposed to be. Bank 2, which is the green, that had a discrepancies. Once we felt that hard misfire under the right conditions, it would reflect a 1 volt or 90 millivolt reading, which will indicate rich mixture. The rich mixture is the indication that that cylinder is the culprit. So being that there's unburned fuel, we was able to narrow down to the cylinder because of which one had the abnormalities in the readings. And I guess from experience, you pull the under load. If it misfires, then it clears up under higher RPM. There's some issues with there's arcing. So this was just a this was a personal experience. I mean, just general knowledge and experiences of dealing with this. So I was able to make a determination like, yeah, that's the art based off of past experience. So pulled the coil because I had to do the valve covers anyway. And after visually inspecting those coil packs, that number 4 cylinder had that discrepancy. It had that white soot, like a pin-sized mark around there, that showed that there was some heat or a significant amount of heat being concentrated in one area for a prolonged period of time. Hence, is that spark, that arcing. Lo and behold, found the cylinder, replaced the coil boot, and I was so confident that's what it was, not a coil. I just replaced the boot. $10 part. Didn't really save too much if you was to buy a coil. Yes, you could, but I just want to prove that this is how legitimate the repair was and isolate the issue just by replacing the part only. So didn't have to spend the additional $40 in the coil, even the coil was $50. Narrow it down, diagnosed it, fix it efficiently. So just to rev it up. So this car is completely fixed. So there's no more issues. I'm totally confident. Only thing is I just got to take it on a test drive, make sure those valve covers are not leaking, and ship this car out and give it back. But hey, you know this world's full of infinite possibilities. I mean, something could happen with this misfire. It could return. You know, who am I? But you're not going to know anything until you subscribe. Subscribe to the channel, hit that link, stay informed, have that reassurance of my work, and see you on the next one.